This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is October 10th, 2024. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host, Kevin Tucker. Hope that everybody out there listening has been safe from Hurricane Milton. We are now being affected by Hurricane Milton in my area in Homosassa as we record this just before 11 o'clock at night. So this is going to be a shorter episode because if we go too long, there is a real strong possibility that I lose power. But as you all are listening to this, I hope you're safe. Hope you have power. If you don't, hopefully this helps get your mind off of things for a little bit. But Kevin, how are you doing up there in Savannah, which you guys will be feeling the effects a little bit of this in the next, I don't know, day or so?
Yeah, a little bit. Not as much as Helene. Like once Helene went through Florida and came up here, it wrecked us pretty good. But this one shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, so I guess if you're watching this or listening to this, guys, and like we're doing, the show, and then all of a sudden Jonathan just disappears, just assume it's because his power went out and I had to take the rest of the show. Yeah. But yeah, hope you're doing good, Jonathan. I know you guys are getting whacked right now, but hopefully it doesn't get any worse than it is. And obviously everybody listening, hope everybody is definitely safe. Yeah,
it definitely been scary the last few days watching the track of this storm as it seemed like it was on a collision course right literally for the Tampa Bay. And even a few hours ago, it looked like that was going to be the case, but they just sort of missed it. Like Tampa was set for some pretty catastrophic, like historic levels of flooding, made landfall Siesta Key. So just by the skin of their teeth down there, they're lucky enough to miss what was really shaping up to be the worst case scenario. But let's talk some Magic basketball. You just wrapped up the post game live, the first one with Maddie. I didn't get to see too much of that as I was scrambling trying to get some things together here, and we did have a few power surges in the middle of that. How did that go? How did Matt do with his first post game live?
We had a great time. Obviously, wish the Magic would have won, and we'll talk more about the Spurs game in a little bit. But yeah, great to hang out with Matty World Peace. In case you guys maybe missed our episode a couple weeks ago, we talked about him and another friend of ours, Sam Mel Hewish, is going to be joining the post-game lives throughout the season. And so, yeah, good to get to hang out with Matt tonight, and obviously good to hang out with everybody tuning into the post-game lives. It was fun.
Awesome. We are going to talk about Monday's game and tonight's game against the Spurs. But before we do that, we got some pretty big Wendell Carter extension news this week. 3-year, $58 million extension for Wendell Carter, which will kick in beginning the 26-27 season. So according to Spa Track, in 26-27, he'll make $18 million. 27-28, he'll make $19.5. And then in 28-29, the third year being a team option, he'll make just under $21 million a year, basically 10% of the cap each year of his extension. We still have him on that really team-friendly. It's going to be $11.9 million this year and then $10.8 million the following year before the extension kicks in. I did feel like it was interesting timing, especially because obviously got injured in the last game, probably won't see much more playing time here in the preseason. And we thought the extension that we were going to get news on would be Jalen Suggs. And I thought there was the potential that, maybe the Magic would give Wendell sort of like a prove it year. Like, hey, like we need to see that you're going to be on the floor and that you're going to, get back to the level that you were playing at, a year or 2 years ago before we sign you to this extension. There are people, Kevin, that have been critical of the extension. But the number one thing that came to mind when we saw Wendell talk with the media after signing the extension, saying to his agent, do whatever it takes to get it done. I want to stay in Orlando. His agent happens to be Mike Miller. Do you know whose agent is also Mike Miller?
Some guy named Paolo Banchero?
Close. I don't think that, this is like a Paolo tax by any means, but do you want to keep Paolo Banchero's representation happy? You absolutely do. And at this point, I don't know how many clients Mike Miller has, but it's not a ton, right? Like I know Paolo obviously was his first player that he's representing, and Wendell was not too far behind. So I don't know how many players are representing over there at Lyft just yet. But I do think that factors into this decision from the Magic, the fact that he and Paolo share representation And at this point in the game, you really want to, you want to keep a good relationship there.
Yeah, and I think it's, I've also seen the naysayers that talk about the money. Talking about 18 million and 19 million the first 2 years, which when you think about, what'd you say that it kicks in 26, 27, what the CBA and the cap is going to look like by then, that likely is not going to be that bad for a starting caliber center. But the biggest thing for me is the team option, like a 3rd-year team option. Are you kidding me? Like, so, I mean, that's a no-brainer to me, and it makes a lot of sense. And I really think it's actually good business by this front office. The other thing I did want to point out, we saw Keith Smith tweet about this. Some people talked about, it's a very tradable contract. It is, but it also means he can't be traded for another 6 months, right? So that's going to put him all the way through. That puts past the trade deadline. Obviously, I think 6 months from now is April. So he will be with the Magic this entire season, right? So don't be thinking about it like that. But in the long term, it still leaves flexibility for the Magic, whether that is he stays and he's affordable, or because he's affordable, he's tradable. And so all in all, I think it's a pretty good move, in spite of what we'll talk about in a second. Yet another Wendell Carter Jr. injury in Monday's game.
Yeah, and just to talk a little bit further to his availability, he has never played more than 62 games in a season so far in his, what is it now? 6 seasons in the NBA. So he played 44 his first year, 43 the second year, 54 his third year, then 62 games, 57 and 55. For a guy that has never been able to play over 62 games a year, I do understand where the concern comes in with Magic fans. If you're getting Wendell and his level of production for 70 games a year, yeah, it feels like a great contract, but there's a legitimate concern that, this guy, he's 25 years old now. Is his health going to get better? Is he going to be able to play more games moving forward? I don't know. We don't have any evidence that would lead us to believe that. As a matter of fact, like you just mentioned, we have the opposite of that. Just got injured in the very first preseason game. Doesn't seem like it's anything crazy. It's a left ankle sprain. Probably not going to play again in the preseason as more of a precaution than anything else. But it's interesting timing because, hey, the biggest concern with this guy is health, and he just had yet another injury. We couldn't even get through one preseason game without something happening to Wendell, which is really unfortunate.
I'm sorry, Jonathan. I'm highly distracted. I just saw video of the Trop. The roof is gone. Like, the roof of the Trop is 75% gone. It is open.
Tropicana Field, the baseball field?
Yes, where they have set up cots and stuff for linemen and for National Guardsmen and stuff to sleep.
Oh my!
I'll send you this tweet.
I'm looking at it right now. That is absolutely unreal.
That is wild. I'm a Rays fan, and obviously this is way bigger than sports. But thinking about that building and that, especially right. Well, anyway, I'm sorry. I'm highly distracted. That tweet just came across my timeline. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That is wild. You know what? I never thought of what the Trop's roof was made of, but I didn't realize it was this pliable of a material that it could literally be ripped off. It just looks like it's some type of fabric, which is
that's what it is. Which really that's why a lot of people were like, why are they setting this up as the shelter for power linemen and National Guardsmen and stuff? But anyway, whatever. Sorry. Whew, that's crazy. Hope everybody's being safe out there. So the last thing I want to say about this Wendell thing is, you mentioned it at the top. What is Jalen and his people thinking of right now? Right? What? Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just, hey, happy for Wendell. Our talks are going however. Or is it bro, Jeff Weltman, what are we doing? I'm just we'll never know, obviously, but I am super curious what something like that does for Jalen and his camp, right?
I tell you what it does is it raises Jalen Suggs' number.
Well, that too. Yeah. So
I will absolutely be shocked if we see Jalen Suggs come in below, $27-28 million a year.
Oh my gosh, really?
Wow. The conversations that we've been hearing is that it might come in somewhere around $29-30 million a year.
Wow.
And Wendell is being paid $20 million a year. Now that's not going to kick in yet for another couple of years here, but you have to think just in terms of impact. Yes, it was just the 1 year with Jalen, in terms of availability, but Jalen played, let's see how many games Jalen Suggs played last season. Jalen Suggs played in 75 games last season. Wendell Carter has never sniffed that. So in terms of availability, in terms of impact, in terms of just like the intangibles that he brings to this team, in my opinion, the Magic should be valuing Jalen Suggs over Wendell. This deal getting done now and before Jalen's, I don't think is indicative of them thinking otherwise. But, I don't think you could blame Jalen if he's maybe a little bit frustrated that a deal hasn't been done yet. But I do think the culture that they've built around this team, Jalen may be a little bit frustrated for himself, but I guarantee that his, the happiness that he feels for Wendell supersedes the frustration that he may be feeling for himself. So I am still hoping that they're able to get a deal done with Jalen before the start of the season. I know we're going to talk about these games, and we'll obviously talk about the individuals, but the first preseason game for Jalen, in this new role of him having a little bit more offensive responsibility, did not go all that well. His usage percentage in that first game was higher than Paolo Banchero's was all of last season. Wow. So I think anybody that watched that first game and expected that's the way that we are going to be playing from now on offensively, with Jalen Suggs having the ball in his hands the majority of the time, look no further than the game that we saw tonight, which is much more in line with what we're used to seeing, with everything sort of flowing through Paolo and Franz, and Jalen just being sort of that like supplementary ball handler and playmaker, which I felt like he did a much better job tonight. It didn't result in a ton of assists, but I just felt like he was making the correct decision, a lot more often tonight than he did Monday's game. So some people have said maybe this is like a prove it year for Jalen of like, hey, if you want to be paid at this number, you have to be the lead guard. I don't know that I buy into that line of thinking. I certainly don't know that that would really be fair to Jalen. Yeah. I think at this point, he probably is better off as like the two guard. But I'm also not giving up like at this point in time, right? Like we're talking about him having all these opportunities to continue to progress as the lead ball handler and a guy that can help set the table and all those kind of things. He has a lot to show us still in that regard. I think he's going to improve in that area. But as of right now, I think ideally you would have like a lead guard that can come up and set the table. Jalen can just sort of play off ball, which he really excelled at last year. But if that is the way that they're approaching these contract negotiations with Jalen, that to me, that would be really odd and unfair to Jalen. So I don't think that is the case, but there are people out there that are speculating. And when you wait and you don't really hear anything from the front office and you live in this sort of like information vacuum, people are going to fill that vacuum with something. And that usually leads to rumors and speculation, which is what we're getting now, none of which is necessarily fact.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think it's going to be a problem, but there's always a concern that the longer something like this goes on, it could become a problem. It could spill over into what is a very strong Orlando Magic culture. And again, Jalen's not that kind of guy. But you always wonder, right? Like, I mean, the longer something like this lingers, the longer, or the higher the chance that it could become something. And so I hope it doesn't. I don't think it will. But again, the longer it goes on, the greater the possibility that it is. So hopefully we can get something wrapped up soon. And I think they will. But we'll see.
I definitely agree. Okay, let's talk about Monday's game against the New Orleans Pelicans. Your Orlando Magic fall 104-106 in that game. Was close. Corey Joseph has a 3 at the end to win that game. I was very happy that they opted for the 3 at that point in the game, that they weren't trying to tie the game and play for overtime, that they were playing for the win. Last half of that game was a snoozer, to put it lightly. It's a preseason game. Yep. It is what it is. We saw the majority, of our starters, play around, 20, ish 23 minutes a game, right around there. But what were your takeaways from that Pelicans game on Monday, Kevin?
There were 3 big storylines for me from this game. First was the Wendell injury, and so obviously Wendell goes down. Hard to see on the broadcast, which was a very shoddy broadcast, by the way, the in-arena broadcast from the Pelicans, which I think is just a joke from the NBA, by the way. Like, what are we doing? The fact that that's even allowed.
The first, what was it, like almost first quarter, we didn't have a score bug at all.
No score bug. And then the commentators show up in the second quarter, I think it was. And then we wished they never showed up at all because they were wild. But anyway, I just don't understand the NBA. Like, you're trying to grow your product. Why are we not doing some kind of effort with these games? But anyway, that's beside the point. Biggest storylines for me, Wendell getting hurt. Like I said, it was hard to see, but looked like he came down on a guy's foot, just landed on his foot, rolled his ankle, ended up being sprained, left ankle. And so I'd be surprised if we see him the rest of preseason. I know obviously the Magic have a long layoff now until their last preseason game next Friday. So obviously maybe you see him against the Sixers, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Magic were just like, rest that and wait till Wednesday. The other two storylines for me were Jalen's turnovers and the team's turnovers as a whole. Jalen had 5 turnovers, like you mentioned, in that kind of lead guard role, but it wasn't just him. The team had, I think, 22, I'm pretty sure the number was, 22 turnovers on the night or the afternoon, and that's just way too many. And you think some of those were G League guys. No, it was everybody. It was your starters and your second unit were both contributing to the turnovers. And then the last one for me was Franz's shooting. Again, something we saw last season that was concerning. One of the biggest things we're looking out for was, will that carry over into this season? And Monday, it did. He shot 2 of 8 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3. A little bit of a concern. But yeah, those are the 3 storylines for me from this game. Wendell's injury, the turnovers, especially Jalen, and Franz's shooting. What about you? What stood out for you?
Honestly, the biggest thing for me was Anthony Black, who in 22 minutes, almost 23 minutes, 9 points, 3 of 6 from the floor, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, added a rebound, an assist, and four assists rather, and a steal. Just in the second unit, which is where we expected to see him sort of step into that Markelle Fultz role from the last half of last year, really sharing the playmaking roles and the organizing roles offensively with Cole Anthony. AB just really looked like a different player. The handle was a lot tighter than we saw it last year. The way that he was really aggressive and attacking the rim and finishing there was really impressive. The things that you and I had talked about all last season, and oh my gosh, the wind outside is getting a little crazy here. The things that we talked about last year in the hashtag free AB movement, was that we saw these flashes, and they were really just that last year, flashes. Like, we wouldn't even necessarily see full games of that, right? Like, we had full games of him like knocking down, a few threes. That happened a few times last year. But in terms of like the actual like creation himself, those were fewer and further between last year. So seeing that in the first preseason game, and really we saw that as well tonight, I thought he looked good again. Just really exciting about the potential of AB, a guy who's not afraid to take shots. We saw him, take a few in the first game. I think he knocked one down tonight against the Spurs. So for me, that was a big takeaway. The Franz thing, I do understand where people were coming from, because it was just like he was an afterthought offensively. But I think, again, I think Jalen had like a 32% usage percentage in that first game. Paolo Banchero had like a 29% all of last year. So the thought that this is now going to be the offense, when I looked at those numbers, I was like, there's absolutely no way this is going to happen. It seemed like it was their Magic's opportunity to say, okay, Jalen, we're going to give you as many reps, like looking at this, as possible here in this first game. And he got, a decent amount of reps in the second game. It was less, but I thought in the second game, he just handled those a lot better and looked way more comfortable.
Yeah, I think really quick, going back to Anthony Black, the thing that has stood out for me is aggression. Like, it's just a different level of confidence, which has led to a different level of like aggression. Like, he has been really confident. He's, taking guys off the dribble. He's getting to the rim. He's, again, I've just been super, super impressed with him in both games, both Monday and tonight. So definitely big shout out to him. Another thing from Monday's game, KCP, Kenny makes his Orlando Magic preseason debut. Maybe a little bit underwhelming. Didn't get a ton of looks, didn't really make a big impact necessarily on the game, but obviously not a guy I'm worried about. And so, yeah, definitely another thing that was looked at for him. The Franz thing, yeah, I don't know, man. You're less concerned than I am for sure about, at least that's how it feels. I'm just worried, like, again, this kind of spills over to tonight's conversation. Once again, he goes 0-2 from 3. So on the preseason, he's 0-4 from 3. And if I'm not mistaken, all 4 of those have just been spot up, like wide open from a kick out. he's got to hit at least one of those to go 25%. 2 of 4 would be amazing, 50%, but you got to at least hit one of those over 2 games. I know it's low volume, not getting an opportunity to get in a lot of rhythm. I think there's definitely some merit to that. And again, if last season wasn't a thing, I wouldn't even be talking about it. But because he had his issues last season, had the offseason, and now it's spilled over into preseason, not in total panic mode yet, but man, I am watching it like a hawk at this point. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's concerns are like completely unfounded. I just think the first game, just offensively in general, like 2 of 8 from the floor, just completely out of rhythm outside of his role. There was no cohesion or anything like that. The second game, I do feel like he got some better looks. Obviously wasn't super efficient there, didn't knock down anything from deep. This next preseason game, especially because we have 9 days in between this one and basically the preseason finale against the 76ers next Friday, that needs to be like a legitimate dress rehearsal, right? I don't know what the plan was going to be. If you haven't heard already, Friday's game has been canceled due to Hurricane Milton. So I don't know what the plan was going to be with these guys and how many minutes they were going to play. Was the rotation going to reflect that of a regular season game? Who knows? I think you throw most of that out the window now, and that last game needs to reflect a regular season, rotation and from a strategic standpoint and the way that you're going to play through guys. I think we need to see that to get ready, because then, you're going to have another week and a half and then the regular season is here. So if things still don't look great for Franz, in that third game, again, I will be a little bit more concerned, but we saw Paolo Banchero get off to a pretty slow start the first few games last year. People were panicking, and then all of a sudden has that big game against the Utah Jazz, and then we were back. So I'm going to wait, at least a couple of weeks into the regular season before I really start hitting the panic button with Franz. I think we've seen enough. The shooting is one thing. People that are concerned just solely about the shooting, totally understand that. We have a season's worth of sample size last year. It doesn't look to be super improved, at least so far. But overall, like, this is a guy who, shot below, 30% last year, still shot basically 50% from the floor,
right?
Overall last year. So I think we've seen enough from Franz over the course of the last 3 years to know that he's going to turn it on at some point. But yes, the big question mark that we talked all offseason about and is going to be a key to this team being able to take the next step is going to be the shooting with Franz. So that's definitely something to watch. Paolo Banchero, by the way, still really good, in case anyone was wondering. In that first game, almost 22 minutes, 15 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 of 7 from the floor, 1 of 2 from behind the arc, 4 of 6 at the free throw line. The Magic got to the free throw line 35 times in that first preseason game against the Pelicans, which I did feel like the refs could chill on the whistle a little bit.
Yeah.
That being the first preseason game. But this is a team that is going to get to the free throw line a ton again this year. So, I didn't have any earth-shattering major takeaways from that first game. Again, it was a 1:30 p.m. start time, which was just weird in general. The broadcast was not a great experience. I watched the stream while I brought up the Orlando Magic Radio Network broadcast and sort of try to sync it up the best that I could. So that made it a lot better. I did not listen to the New Orleans Pelicans announcers. A lot of people said they were terrible, so I'm glad that I didn't do that.
This episode of the Six Man Show is brought to you by our friends at Jam Hot Chicken. Jam Hot Chicken is bringing jams, culture, and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park. We love Jam Hot Chicken, and we promise you will love Jam Hot Chicken too if you give them a try. They're located at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square, right there in beautiful Winter Park. They make amazing LA and Nashville inspired hot chicken that you are guaranteed to love. Follow them at Jam Hot Chicken on all social media and check them out at jamhotchickenfl.com to access the menu, online ordering, and all things Jam Hot. Whether you get the Sando, which is their sandwich, or the box, which is Jonathan and I's favorite, just be sure you order whatever spice level you think you can handle. Maybe come down a notch, right? Like, if you think you like spicy, you like hot, try the mild and see how you do. Whatever you do, if you're a wacko, if you're a maniac and you want to try Jam Hot, don't say we didn't warn you, because it is crazy. If you don't like the spice, don't worry. You can get no spice. You can get plain. All of it is super good. Again, check them out at Jam Hot Chicken on all social media. And when you visit Jam Hot Chicken, just let them know that the Six Man Show sent you.
This episode is also brought to you by Michael Martin, Magic Kid 714, Richard Tuttle, Magic Player History, and Mysterious Mosley. You may be asking, who the heck are they? They are some of our Hall of Fame and elite tier patrons over at patreon.com/the6man show, where for as little as $2 a month, you can help support the show and help make everything that we do possible, from every episode, post-game live, watch party, and everything else. We cannot do it without the support of our patrons, and every dollar helps. So whether you can only give $2 or you want to join our $15 tier and you want to be one of our elite tier members and do things like access to our Discord channel, join our monthly Zoom meetings, whatever works best for you, we really appreciate it. And like I said, we can't do any of this without the support of each and every one of our listeners, and especially our patrons. So if you would like to join our Patreon and join in our mission, you can find us at patreon.com/the6man show. And now back to the show. Let's go ahead and talk about Wednesday night's game. So this game, 8:00 tip-off in San Antonio. We had already gotten news that the Magic the league really was canceling that game on Friday between the Magic and the Pelicans. So you went into this one like questioning, okay, how are we going to see a lot of changes with the rotation, being as how they were going to lose, one of those games. And we did see a big change, and that was Jamal Mosley inserting Jet Howard into the starting lineup, which was really encouraging, because I failed to bring this up talking about Monday's game, but Tristan Da Silva saw the floor Monday before Jet Howard did. And I thought to myself, I don't love that. I don't want to overreact to it, but I didn't love that in the moment. And then you just you can't help but think man, is Jet Howard going to get an opportunity? And here is the best opportunity that Jet Howard is going to get at this point in the season. To me, this sort of cements the idea that Jet is going to get at least the Caleb minutes from last year. Right. So if someone is missing from the lineup, Jet Howard is going to be sort of plugged into that role, is to not mess up all of the lineups. And man, to me, this is the biggest story from this game. The Magic lost this game as well. This one was not as close, 107-97. The starters were fantastic in this game, but to me, the story is Jet Howard. I think he misses his first shot or two, but then knocks down 2 threes in a row. In 28 minutes, finished with 19 points, 6 of 10 from the floor, 3 of 7 from behind the arc, 4 of 4 at the free throw line, added 3 assists and 2 steals. Jet Howard just looked awesome, like a legit NBA high caliber role player, knocking down shots. Wasn't perfect defensively, but for the most part was pretty good. When he got inserted into the game on Monday, I was like, I'm not watching anything else about this game. I'm watching Jet Howard to see why this kid is not on the floor. And I came away from that game saying, sure, there was a mistake. He missed a rotation in transition that led to an open basket for the Pelicans, but by far and large, looked like a solid NBA player. Didn't score the ball a ton, but I expected him to just look completely lost defensively. And each time I've watched Jet, that has just not been the case, right? He is good enough to be on the floor. And if he can pack an offensive punch like that, he's not going to do that every night. But that type of potential and the ability for him to stretch the floor is going to be so big for this Magic team. I think Jamal Mosley is going to have a really tough time keeping Jet Howard off of the floor.
Yeah, this was Jet Howard's biggest opportunity of his career by far yet. When we saw that notification, about an hour before tip-off, first off, we had no idea that KCP, at least I didn't, had no idea KCP wasn't going to play at all. So that was surprising. But then you see it's Jet Howard. It's not Gary Harris. It's not Caleb Houston. It's not whoever. It's Jet Howard. And at that point, I said in our group text, the mystery of Jet Howard's about to be figured out. Either for better or worse, we're going to find out what the deal is with this Jet Howard guy, because we just didn't know. He never been given any real opportunities last season. And so this was his biggest opportunity, and he absolutely made the most of it. Like you said, wasn't perfect, but it was really good, right? And I know it's the Spurs. I know it's not a full Spurs team. The Spurs announcers reminded us many times tonight of the guys that they were missing, Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell and on and on and on. And so I understand all that. It is preseason. However, he was given an opportunity and he made the most of it. 3 of 7 from the 3-point line, 6 of 10 from the field. That includes, by the way, a 4-point play, which was awesome. And also he got fouled on another 3. Ends up going 4 of 4 from the free throw line. 3 assists, had 2 steals, only 1 turnover, 19 points. Yeah, Jet was really, really impressive. And I also really loved watching the guys celebrate him, right? A couple moments where he made really nice plays. I think in particular that 4-point play, Paolo was right there to, pick him up off the ground, and he was yelling, and everything. So it's cool that the guys obviously are rooting for him. No surprise. We talk all the time about the culture of this team, but that was really cool. That was really special. And yeah, so shout out to Jet. The other thing from this game, because of Wendell's injury, Goga starts tonight. That was the other change with the starting lineup. I don't know if we wanted to go. Well, we want to go to Goga now, but I talked about this on the post game live. There's something with Goga, okay? Because if you think back to last season, how when Wendell gets hurt early on and Goga starts, we go on that run and Goga plays really well. At the end of last season, Goga comes off the bench and does not play well. He was really bad. Like, he was eaten alive. Like, it was like, ooh. Tonight, he starts and plays really well. Like, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if that's the secret sauce for Goga, but I thought he was terrific. I loved how he played Wembanyama tonight. I loved his defense. I loved his rebounding. So that was the other guy that got thrown to the starting lineup. But yeah, Jet, Goga, all the starters, like you said, different than Monday's game. We didn't talk about that. Monday's game, the starters were not good. When I say good, I mean compared to the other they got outscored. The starters got outscored in Monday's game against the Pelicans. Tonight, not the case. All 5 starters with a positive plus minus. And so they got up to, I think, a 17-point lead in the first half. But anyway, starters together were good. But yeah, Goga and Jet were the stars for me for the starting lineup tonight.
Goga was awesome. And I think you've really said all there is to say about that. I have something to say that I know is going to absolutely get me cooked. And you may not agree with this, but I have something to say, and I'm going to say it anyway.
All right.
I am not sold that Wemby is just this absolutely can't miss all-time guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not sold.
Yeah.
Defensively, I see it. I understand it's there. He's going to be one of the greatest defenders of all time. Offensively, I don't see him as being this can't miss guy. I don't know what it is. I think he settles a lot for jumpers when this is a guy who can literally like take one step from anywhere on the floor and be right at the rim. Am I crazy for saying that? I feel like I am, but I see him and I'm like, I'm not like so many people are sold that this guy is going to arguably be one of the greatest players of all time already, and I'm not there.
If you were telling me that even defensively you didn't think so, I would say you're crazy. But
I'm not an idiot.
Right. I mean, defensively, he is ridiculous, as he should be with that, size and wingspan and all that kind of stuff. But offensively, I don't see him as, this all-time scorer or whatever. I do, on the other side, understand that it is early.
Yes.
He's only been in the league a year. I do expect him to get better. But yes, nothing I've seen so far makes me believe that is what's going to happen with him.
I don't understand the people that are just like, oh no, I've seen all that I need to see. It's like, really? Like you really have? Because I haven't. And granted, I have not watched a ton of Wemby, but like you don't have to watch a ton of Wemby to see the Wemby highlights.
Right.
Wemby did like 3 things tonight, and it's all the NBA could talk about.
See, I was going to save this for the end, but since you said it, I am so angry at the NBA social media tonight. If you haven't seen it, go to Twitter and scroll through the official NBA account. Because in the first half, while the Magic were up 17 and kicking their tails, and our guy, Paolo Banchero, had a couple highlights. He had that lovely spin move on the rookie, Castle to get to the rim and throw it down. It was amazing. Had a lot of other highlights, the team. All you see from this game is the 3 Wemby highlights. That's all you saw on that Twitter account. And it made me sick.
It was 5 consecutive tweets.
Yeah, it was the Chris Paul lob. And everyone's freaking out. Oh, it's the first CP3 to Wemby alley-oop. Oh. And the other one that made me so bad was the Wembanyama dunk with the 2-hand dunk where everyone just gets out of the way. Like, yeah, he should be able to dunk that. He's like 7'5". His wingspan is like as wide as my car. Like, of course he should be able to dunk in a wide open lane. Why are we freaking out? That's the thing that made me the most angry tonight. We haven't even talked about the actual game, really. But the NBA social media, what they did tonight was a joke. It was atrocious. It was despicable. Whatever adjective you want to use. Shameless, maybe might be another. They just don't even care. They don't even care. That got me really fired up, and it made me mad.
Apart from that, which all of that is completely well-founded, Anthony Black, another great game, 11 points, 6 rebounds, an assist. He did have 3 turnovers tonight, but was 3 of 5 from the floor, 1 of 1 from behind the arc, 4 of 5 from the free throw line. Anthony Black getting to the free throw line is further evidence that he is playing more aggressive and attacking the rim. and that's big not only for the Magic, but for Anthony Black as well. You mentioned no Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in this game, no Gary Harris, and no Jonathan Isaac. So I think a big part of the Spurs being able to come back into that game is the fact that like two of their high-level bench players, didn't play in this game, and then really like the last quarter and a half of this game was second, third string guys, G leaguers, and then like the Exhibit 10 training camp deal kind of guys. And the Spurs starters played a lot more, in this game than the Magic starters did, which was a little bit surprising, but they're doing their own thing over there. That's totally fine. Big takeaway for me in this game, besides Jet Howard, is the fact that, sure, the Spurs have added some pieces. It's going to take time for them to learn each other and really learn how to play together. But the Magic, the Spurs are still a team that the Magic should have no problem beating. When it comes to the regular season, being up 17 in the first half, the Magic looked as good as you would have hoped they would in this second game, especially given how not great they looked at times on Monday. So through two games, I don't know. I'm fine with where we are right now. My attention is now going to be to next Friday and seeing how we look there. The only concern right now that I think I really have is Franz's shooting, unfortunately, which to me it's not time to go crazy, hit the panic button, but it's something to watch.
Yeah, I just had one more thing from this game tonight. I thought Tristan da Silva made a nice little impact there. He came into this game, I think one of the first possessions after he comes in, he has a wide open lane, so he takes it, goes right to the rim for the dunk, which is awesome, and then turns right around, knocks down a three one of the next few possessions. Love seeing that confidence for him. He hits another three later, so he ends up with 8 points, 2 of 3 from the field. I've really liked what we've seen from him through two games. I feel like he's definitely confirmed what we thought. Like, he has one of, if not the highest floor, year one in the entire draft. Like, he is one of the most, if not the most, capable of contributing within his role of anyone in this draft. Like, he knows his role, he knows what he's good at, he knows what he's not good at. And so I really like what we've seen from him. Again, obviously the biggest question mark is he going to get minutes in the regular season? Like, where do those minutes come from? How are those distributed? It's a huge mystery. Maybe the biggest of this whole team is where those minutes going to go in the regular season. But like you said, I think I hope next Friday we get a pretty clear picture of what that's going to look like. Because like you said, with 9 days off, lots of time to work on some things, lots of time to drill down some concepts, some plays, but ultimately lots of time to get rest and get ready for the regular season. Just a little, note for those that are interested in these kinds of things. The Magic obviously going to stay in San Antonio an extra day plus because of Hurricane Milton. So they're actually going to, I think it was Mason Williams, I saw tweet this out. They're going to actually practice in San Antonio tomorrow. So they'll get a practice in, and then I don't know if they're going to fly back Thursday night or Friday morning or something like that. But definitely interesting and definitely weird. We thought the 7-day layoff between preseason games was weird. Now it's 9. So I'll be very interested to see what the Magic look like next Friday. It also just sucks that we have to wait 9 more days for Magic basketball, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, the Magic, they haven't updated like the travel schedule yet, so I don't know exactly when they're going to be leaving San Antonio, but we'll keep an eye on that. And then just coming back to free throws and turnovers right now, the Magic are shooting 73% from the free throw line through 2 preseason games, which is not exactly where you want to be. And then 21.5 turnovers per game. Both of those really need to be cleaned up here. I think, again, throw these first 2 preseason games out of the window. At this point, you just want to see them continue to improve as we get into the regular season. So we'll keep an eye on next Friday. Kevin, we are 0-2. Both of us had the Magic going 2-1 this week, so that obviously didn't happen. But like I said, we're looking to next Friday. Team is going to get some time to practice and clean some things up. And again, you just want to see improvement next Friday against the 76ers.
Well, the good news for us, Jonathan, with our week ahead, because of the Pelicans game being canceled, this week gets voided, because, you miss a game. So like our predictions, Vegas would have voided them anyway. So, it's okay. We got a clean slate. But yeah, it's definitely a little strange. Obviously, anytime there's a storm that impacts, kind of the travel schedule and all that kind of stuff, it's got to be strange for the team. I don't know. I didn't see any pictures of like family coming on the plane. I know, like, for example, the Bucks, they were able to take everybody's families on the plane, which is pretty cool, like their dogs and everything, which was cool. So I also wonder if tonight maybe there were some, thinking about families back home and stuff. Who knows? Obviously. But anyway, definitely hope everybody that is listening to this continues to stay safe as we kind of wrap up Hurricane Milton, hopefully pretty soon.
Yep. And let's go ahead and wrap up this episode unless you have anything else that you want to cover here.
That's it. Hope everybody's staying safe. Hope this was a good opportunity for you guys to, get your mind off of the storm and think about some Magic basketball as we all kind of distract ourselves, I guess, a little bit.
Yep. All right, that's going to do it for this one. For Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. One more preseason game coming up, and then our eyes shift to the regular season. That's going to do it for this one. For the Sixth Man Show, we will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!